As people who want to make music income, it's easy to concentrate or even fixate on the wrong things: record deals, publishing deals, library deals. What libraries pay per track? What library is doing this? What library is doing that? It's easy to say, oh, this guy, wherever you are, this guy made $5,000 with this library. How do I do that? What's the secret formula? And we pursue that so hard that we sometimes forget to do the very thing that we said we wanted to do so bad when we started this with our art, our music. And this is one reason why I have another channel now that focuses only on composing, because it's something I want to talk about. It's fixating for me, as far as I'm concerned, on maybe the right thing. And not that this make music income is not the right thing, but I need an artistic side to focus on as well. So, hello and welcome to Make Music Income podcast number 44. I'm Eric Copeland of Make Music Academy. Make Music,
Make Music
I haven't announced
Academy.
this yet, but the Make
Whoa.
Music.
You got to merge into one.
I'm Eric Copeland of Make Music Income and Hello Composers. And this is Mr. Stephen Bedall of the Production Music Academy. And today we want to focus on the things that are not bad, but they can be rainbows that we chase instead of doing our best work or our life's work. So first, let's hear from a man who does not concentrate on rainbows that often, only occasionally fixating. And that is Mr. Stevie B. What have you been up to this week, my friend?
What's going on? What's going on, everybody? Make Music Academy is going to be the name of
Make
our
Music
eventual
Production
merger
Academy.
into one company.
Make Music Production Music Academy. Hello, Composers
Production
Academy.
Income Academy. What's going on over here? I think I feel like what you're describing is tunnel vision, and sometimes I get that. I think we all suffer from tunnel vision occasionally, and just overly fixate on one particular thing. I think for me that this last week it's been setting up my new PC computer, my Beast, which is alive now.
It's got a name.
It's Stevie's Beast. That's what I literally named that. Anyway, so
I get it. Like Stevie B, but Stevie Beast.
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
Exactly.
Love it.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of annoying. I didn't get any time to do like a YouTube video this week, which is always kind of a bummer. I try to do at least one a week, aside from the podcast going up. So that was not possible. It's just a lot of time and tweaking and getting everything right. With it, I've done some tests on it though, and it's really interesting, man. Really, really interesting, especially when it comes to video editing. My God, is it fast? It's insane. It just kicks the Mac Mini's butt.
And you have a brand new Mac Mini, pretty much.
Yeah, so it's a lot faster with video editing, and rendering, which is cool. Starting to get the hang of Cubase, which is cool. I'm trying to spend half an hour to an hour every day, just kind of like getting the muscle memory going, and trying to, like, I did a little mock session yesterday where I just tried to do like a little cue, like a minute long cue, and it's coming along. It's coming along, but it's I'm training my brain to get used to it. But I do like some features about it, and maybe I'll do a video about it at some point.
You should.
Cubase versus Logic. Anyway, what else is going on here? I had my first one-on-one Zoom session yesterday,
Cool.
and went really, really well. I'm doing another one as soon as we wrap up this taping, and they are officially open for booking now through the Academy only, just to start, because my time is so limited. And I'll eventually open them up to anyone, and maybe advertise that on YouTube, I guess, to some extent. But I have to be careful at the moment with how much time, free time I have, and that kind of thing. But I'm excited about it. I didn't really push it too hard in the Academy, even because I was afraid of too many people actually taking me up on it. But I think it's gonna be fun, and I really enjoy connecting with people one-on-one and having conversations. It's really interesting for me. So that's exciting. And I just posted the track breakdown session I did with Dave Kropf yesterday in the Academy, and I'm just so stoked about how well it went. It was just super eye-opening for me. It was so cool to see Dave's process. and talk about, like, one of his most successful TV cues that he's
Mhm.
done. Um, and I think that the members are really enjoying it. So a big shout out to Dave, and thanks again for doing that. And I hope to do more of that kind of thing in the Academy. I just love opening it up to other producers, and just seeing how they work. It gets me inspired. It gets everyone inspired. So that's been my week. Yeah, I think otherwise just kind of working on tunes. Got like a whole bunch of tunes kind of like midway done. And I'll be digging into that a little bit more today. And that's about it for me, man. What about you?
Um, well, I've started to see some. I've been having a little string of TuneSat reports, and I'm seeing something in that is a lot of reports from shows in Germany. So I'm
Oh,
thinking that, and from the same library album.
okay.
So I'm wondering if someone in Germany hasn't found this album and now is using it in lots of different shows. I'm not saying that's the case, but there's one show that's used two or three songs now, and then other songs from that same album have been used in other German shows. So I'm wondering if there is a music supervisor or something in that country that is it. That's why it's so interesting to see reports like TuneSat or even Content ID reports and see how things are being used, And so I'm getting to that point where second or third page of TuneSat, you're seeing enough reports that you think, hey, this might just work
Are you
if all these albums get out there.
in the preview for it? Or is it like, can you tell if it's for an advertisement, or if it's for
Yeah,
like
it's usually for TV shows that
yeah,
they have. But yeah, you can. I think you can watch it. You certainly can listen to
you can
it.
listen to it. Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm. And but if you know the show, you can go on YouTube or something and usually find the show,
Right.
the clip from the show or something. So that's cool. Again, this is something that's easy to fixate on and talk about things we can fixate on is reports from where our songs are being used and if all this whole thing, and we'll talk about that in these things down below.
Right.
I've also had interviews galore this week. I mean, the Adam Ivy first Adam Ivy video went out. There's going to be at least three
Part one.
because, geez, there's a lot we cover in that.
Yeah, that was a great
Um,
interview, by the way. I
yeah,
did.
and I had to edit that thing like crazy to get it to that length because I'm trying to make some videos because you and I and in my lives, they're hour plus videos all the time. And so just so you know, folks, if you're still watching this at this point or listening, I am trying to get you some shorter content, but it's just hard. Editing is such a it's such time is such a premium
Yeah.
that as you know, editing is just it's especially when you have a guest like Adam who talks a lot
Yeah.
and very fast, and I have to go in and edit. And I'm not editing because what he's saying isn't good, but just because we just have to we have to have a limit of what information comes out. But I
Yes.
think that's why it's being received well because people are able to get it in a quick format versus have to wait for some nugget he says and at the end of half hour one you know
I think it makes sense.
so
Yeah.
yeah, but I just also had another interview today. So, and I've got another one that I did 2 weeks ago about sheet music with somebody, and I haven't even had time to edit it yet. So now I'm starting to stockpile. I still have another video with Jesse to put out that we did that I haven't put out yet. So
Yeah.
just all sorts of interviews, and you have to intersperse those with other things. And I've found, and I do a live now every Friday. So that has become pretty popular, and those videos do very well. So everybody seems to like that. Hello Composers is doing its Wednesday music reviews, as I promised earlier in the year, finally, and this one went, I think, very well yesterday.
Nice.
Able to really focus on some specific things, but yesterday's was about how we write, how we compose,
Nice.
and so I just focused on I ask everybody who submitted something, how did you start on this? How'd you get it started? What did you do? So that's fun to talk about. And no music like, oh, this is, I mean, you can't help but sometimes say where this would work in film or music licensing or whatever. But for the most part, concentrating on compositional things, arrangement things, not music income things.
Gotcha.
Um, like you, have a lot of new pieces in various formats. On Saturday, I got a lot done on a few new pieces that are going to be going up to non-exclusive libraries here soon. Um, I talked to one of my exclusive libraries who's given me some marching orders on a new on some new songs that he wants, which I was going to work on anyway. So you know how I love that when I can work on something I wanted to make anyway for someone who wants that. All good. And so that's what I'm after.
Yeah.
Like you, I've been doing consults. I kind of pull the price down on my consults, but again, like you, I have very limited spots for them. But I've been actually doing some composer ones, and so those are open on my site and have been for a while. But it's I think there's going to be a definite thing between composing type ones where someone this week just wanted me to listen to their compositions, not talking about where will this work,
Okay.
all that kind of stuff, just about the composing part. And so I think eventually these two channels are going to have a very different kind of look on them. But
Cool.
and then having a decent stock month for me, it'd be like pennies for you, but for me, it's not bad. And thanks to a big payout from SongTrader mainly, but
Nice.
also a bunch of other little things here and there paying. So that's going to be nice. And I'll also I get my first check from, or I should get my first check on the 29th from Content ID from Identify.
Very exciting.
Yeah, 200 or 300
Do they
bucks.
pay
So
you
that's
directly,
nice.
like to your bank account? Yeah, yeah. I remember setting up a bank account
Mhm.
information with them, I think.
I'll let you know
Yeah.
on the 29th. I'll let you
Okay.
know, well, in the coming podcast, not the next one, but the one after that, if I get paid.
Okay.
Exactly right. But hope to. So I'm trying not to fixate that on that too much, but that's what we want to talk about today in the podcast is fixating on all these things. I mean, it's so easy to get fixated on, how am I doing this month in stock? I keep those stats very carefully. Because I like watching it and it's fun to show people on my spreadsheets, and give that information out on this channel. I think it's interesting for people to see what I make versus what they make. But the problem is you can really fixate on that. You can really like just get all caught up in how much you're checking, um, the stats every day,
Right.
and check what's Motion Ray doing today? What's if I had any new sales on Audio Jungle, what's going on,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then you get a dancing polar bear and you go, oh, I got to go look at Pond 5, oh, good. I make 50 cents. Woohoo. And so, it's dangerous because it can stop us from spending time on the things we need to spend time on.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking back to the old Audio Jungle days of just s- having the website, having the profile page open, and then just hitting the refresh button, see if the number
Yeah.
changes.
Is it going to change? Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. And
yeah.
Motion Arrays like that because it's daily,
Yeah.
you see the numbers go up daily
Motion
and
Ray
it's
is
so,
is the same thing. Try not to look at it too much. It'd be funny if the team at Motion Array could see how many times I'm like checking the
I'm sure
profile. They're
they
like, this
can.
guy's crazy. Um, yeah, it's all distracting. The same way that like social media and like my phone in front of me, like when I'm trying to work, is distracting. And it's important to put those things aside consciously, and try to do the thing that's fundamentally the most important to progress, which is writing music and getting better at writing music. And it is easy to forget that sometimes and get distracted by all the other things.
All right, so I kind of have a list here of things that we fixate on. And so I'll just start with this list and we could talk about each of these things and see what you think about all these. And then if you've got some things we can, if they're not covered in this, make sure or if it's a different version of what I'm talking about. But the first thing I think that people concentrate on, and not necessarily our audience, but I think traditionally people have fixated on the record deal. And I still get a lot of my students who come in thinking the record deal is all that as far as the music business. If they get a record deal, that's the ultimate level of success for them.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the first things that I think almost all music people have fixated on for years. Any thoughts on that?
What do I think about that? The record deal?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, it just feels it feels like an old version of like, my vision for success. It's like it's what I thought about when I was like 15 or 16. I think that, in the late 90s, early 2000s, it was still a time where you could be like discovered and get a record deal, and I mean, you still can. But the I think the mechanics of record deals typically have changed a lot since those in the last 20 years. They're not really the same kind of thing, and I think that I don't know. Do you really need a deal in
Yeah,
today's
that's the thing.
do it
I think
yourself?
the role of the record label has changed over the last 20 years, where it is kind of a 90s thing. It was a thing in the 90s, maybe early 2000s, but since the advent of streaming and the advent of independent uh, publishing and independent marketing and all the tools we have now, in a day that there wasn't a YouTube or Spotify or any of these tools that we can now use and social media.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had to have a label that did all the heavy lifting, but now, I'm not sure it's the same.
Well,
Same
you're going to
need.
do an enormous amount of lifting on your own, and I think that record deals now are contingent upon you doing that initial, like, self
Yeah.
promotion. And I think that even, I mean, you hear it these days too. It's like you see that, like, there's like major label artists complaining about how their record companies are, like, constantly badgering them to do, like, get
Mhm.
on TikTok every day or 2-3 times a day, and like, and do all this self promotion, where at one point, it was the record label's job to do the promotion for the artist. Now it's like, yeah, okay, you can get a record deal, but you're still gonna do all the work. It's just,
Yeah,
I mean,
they
it's a little weird.
they literally expect you to come in already
Yeah.
with all that stuff
Yeah.
versus building it for you like they used to do in the artist development days. There's not really artist development happening at labels as much anymore, I don't believe. So
Yeah.
that's what
Well,
we talk about.
I think, yeah, a label deal, it definitely comes with some, like, it's going to be contingent on some proof of concept, like you've already kind of like had a lot of being able to sell a lot of records maybe at your shows, or and you already have like kind of like a core grassroots audience. I mean, that's what they're
Yeah,
looking
a
for now.
big Instagram following, big
Yeah, exactly.
Spotify numbers, all that stuff you have already, which leads a lot of people to ask, why do I even need a record deal in the first place if
Well,
I've got all this going on?
well,
But
exactly. That's it. I think at this point, a record deal is just like it's like a one level up of exposure. They have access
yeah,
to
yeah,
all sorts of things that you might not be able to get on your own. And but I think it's like, yeah, I think for a lot of artists, they are questioning whether it's worth it, because a record deal is going to typically take a percentage of everything you do. It's going to take a percentage of your merch, your sales, absolutely everything. It's like a 360 deal.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I think
I
that,
tell us
yeah.
I tell a little joke in my class about a video I saw one time where someone said, this is the last 360 deal we are signing with artists, because starting tomorrow, we are starting the 540 deal. And the 540 deal is that we not only take a piece of your income and everything that you do, we also take a piece of your family's income and what
Yeah,
they do.
right. Yeah.
So say your uncle has a sweet plumbing business. We'll take a percentage of that. Say your sister just started working over at the Olive Garden. We'll take a percentage of that as well.
Yeah, no kidding, eh? And then to make it even worse is is record deals often come with some kind of advance, which is not which you end up owing back
Just a
to.
loan.
Yeah, it's just a loan. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, I used to think that when I first started playing music in a band and stuff, I thought a record deal would be cool. But of course, I think as time went on, we live in a much more do-it-yourself sort of culture when it comes to getting things started, and there is incredibly successful and independent artists that are around to this day. And
Not to continue this fixation on record deals too long, even in this podcast, but I think there is a certain point where an independent artist is going to need the bigger arms of marketing that a record
if
deal
they want to
that
be like a
that a record label
superstar,
has.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
All right. And so the next thing that I focused on, and I wasn't focused on a record deal really when I was younger. My focus was a publishing deal. If I could
Mm.
only get a publishing deal with a publisher who loved my stuff enough that that they would sign me to a deal where they basically pay me yearly to write a certain number of songs for them.
Yeah.
And I thought that was the end all be all. Still think it sounds pretty sweet.
It is cool.
But
Yeah.
but in essence, we're kind of signing those deals now with places like Artlist or uh, any exclusive libraries we work with. Those are basically publishing deals. But we'll talk about those next. But that was something that I really fixated on a lot, and even into my 30s, I thought that was going to be how I was going to make it big.
Yeah.
Was that the right person was going to get my demo, realize my genius, and want to sign me to a publishing deal. And it took a long time to get away from that, even though I'm still trying to get publishing deals now,
Hmm.
except we call them library deals. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I guess that's the thing is, there's different types of publishing deals. Like I have some buddies in on the island here just off the coast, and who have a publishing deal. They've had one with Universal for probably over 5 years now, and it's keeps them busy. All they do is write songs every day. Like they literally get up and that's their job. They just write. They deliver a ton of music to, the deal with they have is kind of restrictive. Like they're not allowed to like do things on the side. I think anything that they do, anything that they write, Universal is going to take a cut of it, right? So they can't do like side deals where, say I get them to record a vocal on one of my songs. Like it's like they can't really do that because
or they can't be an Artlist or probably other libraries and stuff.
Exactly. But at the same time they're paid a salary by and it's a good job. So
yeah,
it is what it is. I mean, it would be cool to get one for sure, but I think it would have to be the right amount of money to get me to stop working with libraries, of course. So
yeah. And I think that's, speaking of libraries, that's the next deal that probably everyone who's watching this video or listening to this video right now is 75, if not more, percent of the people listening right now are saying, I'm trying actively to find a library deal or more library deals. Maybe you're in one now or in several and you want more, whether they're non-exclusive or exclusive. We're not going to get into sink or stock, but whatever kind of library you're in, if it's making you money through that library or has the possibility to, that seems to be what everybody's fixating on. In our Discord, there is constant, even this week, stuff going on like how many cents are you making per song per month on this library and this library and this library, and it's almost like, wow, why are you sitting here writing this about this really? I mean, and then other people are saying, what do you mean by that? How are you getting how are you getting those numbers and blah, 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 when you really should get off Discord and start writing some music, really. I mean, that is getting you into a hole of time that you're not going to get back. And, I think when we do these videos, we're trying to put stuff out there that helps people, that gets them motivated to go out and do more. And I think even we don't talk about, I mean, I think we do talk about what we're trying to get done every week as far as new music and things like that and composing. And now that I have the composing channel, that's really focused on that. But it's this library thing, man. It's addictive. It really is.
It is. I think that there's a tendency to get obsessed about the numbers and and also getting obsessed about what other people are doing and like how other people are seeing success. And it's like, I think it's important it's an important conversation to have, just because I'm doing well on Motion Array or Artlist, doesn't mean it's the right fit for everybody, and I think that other folks like, for example, Dave, have found a completely and totally different avenue to success and he's doing something very different. And I think that you got to focus on, I suppose you got to focus on like where your skills are, like what your strengths are. And do some digging in terms of where it's gonna land and where it's gonna do well. I think obviously I talk about Artlist and Motion Array a lot, and I think that it gets people really excited about the idea of like working with them, but it may or may not be the right fit for you. And I think that that is just depends on what kind of music you're writing, what you're good at. your strength and your skill set might end up being just not the right fit for it, and that doesn't mean that your music's bad. It just means that it needs to be somewhere else, perhaps. And there's a
Right.
lot of opportunity out there. So, um,
Well, I feel like I talk about that enough on this channel, and I think it's because it's a fun thing to talk about. There's a lot of speculation and a lot of opportunity. There's so much opportunity, and I think that is the thing that's the most interesting and most fun. And it's fun to talk about it, but I think we've got to be careful. Even I have to be careful of how much time I spend making videos about it
mhm.
versus sitting here composing and submitting to libraries. I have to do that part.
Yeah,
And so now my channel happens to be based on that to some extent. So does yours.
yeah,
And so yours is really based on more of the production itself, which is what people need to be doing. And the composing channel that I'm trying to work on is about composing and that we're doing. So
right.
I think that's what I'm trying to get back to with this whole thing. I'm not chasing rainbows is a little just some words, and it sounds a little harsh, but we can get to that place where we're not really making the music, and that's what I'm talking about. So we can
Yeah.
talk about library deals all day, and we already do. So let's move on from that. In a similar kind of place, I'm going to put places like Taxi or things like that where there are online briefs that you can submit to, and another easy thing to be fixated on and to be um, just interrupted by. Talk about things coming up on your phone. It's so hard to not read an email of something saying these companies are looking for this music, and you go, oh, well, so you're saying there's a chance.
Yeah.
So let me go in there and listen to what they're talking about, you know. And so I think it's easy for us to get hung up there, and it's not just Taxi. It could be Song Trader or a lot of these sites, you know, that offer this kind of thing.
Yeah, the brief, the money dangling
Hmm.
in the distance, definitely gets us motivated and sometimes maybe a little bit distracted. But you know, if that's what we need to get some work done and improve our skills, I mean, we've talked about this a million times. We don't have to go into it, but I think that that's a primary reason why people are with Taxi in the first place is because it's this motivator, and sometimes people have a hard time motivating themselves to just write something without the idea that it might be like a stepping stone towards being in a library or getting the prize money, I guess you could say.
Well, or in some case, in like Dave's case, where he is getting, um, he's actually getting, um, you know, different briefs from the library that is going to pay him. He knows he's going to get stuff in there. This isn't a will I get forwarded to the brief. This is he has a brief from the company that says this is what we need, do it, and he does it, and it's part of his deal. It's almost like a publishing deal. It is a
Yeah.
publishing deal, and so I think a brief in that way is different. You know, I think a
That's
brief
more
in that
direct.
way,
A brief from
yeah, it's
Taxi. A brief from Taxi is like two steps removed from
yeah,
the
or
you got it.
more.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that kind of brief, if you've got a job to do, then it's important. You
Yeah.
know, it's not it's similar to a client coming to you and saying, "Hey, I need you to do this certain thing for me," and you saying, "Uh, yeah, maybe I'll get around to it." No, you say yes because you want to be paid and
Right.
make money from that. So,
Right.
I think that that is definitely, you know, definitely a big thing, and so it's not just taxi but briefs.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. All right, well, let's move on from there and curated playlists. You know, this is another one that I've thought about doing a whole episode on, really. Just the whole Spotify
Oh,
curated playlist fixation now that we have.
yeah.
I have albums to put out, but I am not because I want to make sure that I get every single possible that could possibly get in a curated playlist. And most of them don't. None of them really have. I don't. I've had a few. I've had like a couple, but of the and I'm talking about not just my singles, but singles I've put out for clients of the hundreds of singles, maybe a handful.
Hmm.
And but still, it's that. So you're saying there's a chance. I got to try to get on a playlist, or we pay playlist promoters, or we just go crazy about playlists. And I think that's become a kind of a fixation for
Oh
us
my
lately.
God, yeah, 100%. I mean, the Spotify, like, editorial playlists are they're like, yeah. I mean,
It's like gold.
yeah, exactly. We're all trying to like get on them. I mean, there's an enormous amount of competition to get on them. Some of them, you can only get on them if you have like some like like this comes back to what we're talking about with labels. Sometimes labels have direct connections with some of
Yeah.
these curators, and the only way you can get on them is to
Yeah.
be with a label. Um, I mean, it for sure is one of those things that I think people get, they get wrapped up in the idea that is going to be the like the only way to grow on Spotify, and in fact, it's not true. Like you're gonna get like a huge spike in your monthly listeners, like being on one of these playlists, and I've seen a couple of the members, land some playlist placements. Same with like your bud Dan as well.
Yeah.
Landing these placements, and it generates a lot of listens. But it's not going to really do anything to grow your core grassroots fan base. I don't think.
Yeah.
I
Well,
think that's really where the sustainability and the longevity comes into play. Is you want to be building an actual audience that is going to be able to interface and interact with you as a person, rather than just landing on these playlists where you're going to see a big spike, but then it's going to go away. So yeah, I think
the,
that.
the thing about all these things is that they could break. Something could break. You could get a record deal. You could get a publishing deal. You could get a library deal or a taxi deal or a playlist. And the lure of that possibility of income or greatness, and what I want to talk about next is stardom and fame. I mean, we
Mhm.
think about those things as, oh, that's what's going to really make my life. That will be my life's work. That is what I'm really after. When I'm not sure at the heart of things if I care about so much stardom or fame as much as I care about income from these things, probably, or just the actual making of the thing. I think if there was no income to be made from music and I didn't need income, I would just make music all the time still. And I think sometimes it can get dicey as to what our reasons are for composing, what our reasons are for making music in the first place. And it can be that stardom, fame thing. I'm waiting for that person in that playlist or that the record label to tell me I am good enough and tell me, "Ooh, you're a star, kid. Come on in." That's the thing that I think we get into sometimes.
Yeah, well, that goes back to just feeling, like this old version of, like this. That kind of goes back to how I felt when I was like, just learning the guitar and starting to play with bands.
Mm-hmm.
Like, like it all seems really cool and fun.
Yeah.
But and there's this romanticism involved in like, stardom and fame and all that. I think a certain level of notoriety, whether it be through your music, like or just being online on YouTube, for example, it can be very manageable and also very profitable, of course. I would hate to be at this point in my life. The idea of being famous. Like I look at, these articles that come up about famous people and in the world today, and I just feel bad for anybody who has that level of scrutiny on their life, and I think
Yeah.
that would just be a horrible burden to have to bear. I would hate the lack of privacy would absolutely drive me insane. And I think even people who are like on YouTube and kind of internet famous, also
Yeah.
face that kind of that burden of just like lack of privacy and like so much scrutiny when everyone's scrutinizing your every single word, and like and your words have so much impact on so many people. Like that is I don't know if I'd ever wanted to get to that level. It would be a little uncomfortable.
I heard Graham Cochran on his podcast the other day say, if and now let me know what you think about this. Please just send a comment in the comments below. Good comments only, please. That's just only good comments. Thank you. If you have something, he goes, if you agree, yeah, let me know in the comments. If you don't agree, just don't comment. It's fine. I don't need to know. I thought that was so fun.
It's
Only
fun.
nice
Yeah, it's
comments, please.
honest.
Thank you. Because when you get to that level where people are just saying really mean things because they don't agree with you or
Mhm.
whatever, luckily we don't run into that much. That doesn't mean leave a bad comment on this this video.
Yeah.
But you know,
Yeah, occasionally, like the thing is that yeah, like occasionally I do get like we both get like a negative comment on some of our videos. That is just comes with the territory. With if you're making
yeah.
YouTube videos, no matter what, there's going to be some curmudgeon out there who's going to write something mean, and you fixate on talk about fixation. Like like
Oh
people,
boy.
it's really easy to fixate on negativity in general, right?
Mm-hmm.
One thing goes wrong, like one comment is bad, one rejection, it's like from a library, and it just kills your momentum, and it kills your self-confidence, and you quickly forget about all the things that you've succeeded in doing, and that's what I think that's part of of the process of being an artist and a musician, and being in this licensing business, is dealing with the rejection part of the job, which is frequent, and forgetting about all of the progress that you've made, and just fixating on like one negative thing. It's very, very easy to do that.
It's so easy to you could get 100 great comments and then get one negative comment and think everybody hates this.
Totally.
Just because of one negative comment. I used to get an email a year from the fans of another Eric Copeland, and it was a harsh email, and about how much they hated my music, and all that kind of stuff, because they were looking for this other guy's music.
Oh yeah.
And it was one email per year or every 2 years, but it was just like, oh, it was like somebody stuck a knife in my chest, because you're just like, ah. So yeah,
Yeah.
stardom and fame and being seen and heard, and having an audience is not always what you think it might be, and certainly not something to fixate on. Another thing that I find we fixate on a lot, and I get so many questions about this, and this, it just never ends. But how do I register my copyright? How do I register my trademark? I got to do I need to copyright my songs? I got to copyright everything. I got to get it all up on my. Do I need to put it on my PRO? Do I not need to put it up on my PRO? I need to get it all. I don't want anybody to steal my song. All this kind of protection of your music. So scared and so fixated on my music is not going to be protected, and somebody's going to steal my music.
Yeah, you're right. That's a good point. I think that there's a lot of paranoia that's expressed from especially, like, it's always surprising coming from producers and artists that are kind of just getting in to the whole game, and I'm just like, man, I don't know. I suppose I just didn't really think about that at all when I started, and maybe I'm too careless, but like
I did.
you
I
know,
remember a time when I worried about copyrighting everything, and every year I would put a big track together in one list and send it, and I could go, well, at least I'm protected. If somebody in LA here's my tape, they're not going to steal my song. But eventually, I think I think it was like after my first song got used. And this my first use of a song that I think of as big was this like independent artist who, just unbeknownst to me, recorded one of my songs on his album. And actually another producer called me up. He says, I'm producing this artist album. He really likes your song so and so. Can he use it? I'm like, yeah. And I didn't make anything from that ever, but getting on that first album of somebody's, it wasn't me putting it out. It wasn't me producing somebody who put it out. It was someone else who heard one of my songs who put it on their album. And I don't think that they ever sent me anything, and I didn't need anything. But it was just from that point on, I was just like, you know what? They'll figure it out that it belongs to me, and I'm past that point now of wondering if something's going to get stolen. It's very unlikely
I
that something's going
I
to get
tend to
stolen.
think the same. Yeah, I just feel like it's unlikely, and I've never experienced somebody like trying to steal my songs. Maybe that would change my opinion on it, but yeah, I don't know. I just I'm not super concerned about people stealing my music or my ideas or anything like that. And until it happens, I'll probably just be I just it won't occupy that much territory in my mind. But it's nice to have, like, things registered with Content ID, for example. I mean, you feel like some level of protection there.
Mm-hmm.
And I would probably do that
Or
for
PROs.
yeah,
Your
PROs too.
PRO is something that could gather income for you on the back end, and so
Yeah,
it's not protection as much as it is just smart.
yeah.
But copyright is a different deal these days, and especially when people ask me, should I trademark my artist name? I'm like, what? Who are you? Like the Aerosmith? I
Well,
mean,
well,
come
don't
on.
like. I just wouldn't worry about it until you've you're starting to get a lot of eyeballs on your work, and just like at the point in which you're starting out and getting things set up and going, it's like there's just no sense in worrying too much about that.
Yeah.
When things start to blow up for you, then you got to hire a lawyer, and then like maybe get some good advice and get some things copyrighted, and that's the time to do it. But I think
I will
until
say
then,
that in my music interview, my music publishing interview with Trevor at Curb Music, they do copyright every quarter everything
okay,
that has been like released or maybe even written, but certainly stuff that has been like released or is doing something or whatever. They go ahead and they do a quarterly copyright of all of it in like a big bunch.
right,
But they're a major record, a major music publisher,
okay,
major, in the United States. So I think if you are concerned about copyright, I always tell people if you're concerned about it, then you should copyright your songs. You should just do it.
if
If
it
it's
makes
a
you feel
big
better,
concern for you,
yeah,
just do it. Don't fixate it. Don't worry about it. Just go ahead and do it if it'll make you feel better.
totally.
People would ask me all that all the time. Should I copyright my song before I can work with you in Nashville? I'm like, if it makes you feel better, then yes. I'm not going to have anything to do with your copyrights,
Right.
but go ahead. Yeah, do whatever makes you feel best. All right, and here's another thing that you and I both fixate on a lot: YouTube channels and podcasts.
Yeah, social media. Oh my god.
No, I'm just talking about, I don't even think of,
Just
do you think
YouTube.
of YouTube channels and podcasts as social media?
Well, yeah, yeah. YouTube is social media. I mean,
I guess.
what
I
else
think
would
of
it
it
be?
more as broadcast media to me. It feels more like a broadcast that people can comment on versus a social media where you are. But I guess I use all social media for broadcasting, so it doesn't really matter. I don't interact and do a lot of a lot of like scrolling on Facebook. I do on YouTube, but even that I'm just absorbing a broadcast. I'm not really talking back and forth with people like on Facebook where somebody comments and they comment and they comment and you got all these comments going back and forth. I don't do that, but I do fixate on broadcasting out. And I think, and I'm not talking about here that we fixate on watching YouTube channels as much as starting them, starting podcasts, starting social media broadcasting. We could include reels and um, uh, uh, postings that you're trying to get people to watch your brand, all that kind of stuff. So I guess you could include social media, but I'm talking about from an outgo rather than being absorbed in it. That's a whole nother conversation.
That's
We
another
know that's a
conversation.
distraction.
Yeah, it is.
You know,
It certainly is. Well, I mean, the broadcasting and the output of it is whether we love it or not, it's an important part of our businesses, respectively. We need to put ourselves out there to build community, and that's what we do. We're building a community here, and our community relies on us broadcasting our updates and our information and like where we're at, and I think we keep everyone informed, and it's just part of what we do.
yeah.
And I think that I feel like all things relatively like speaking, we keep I think we don't get too, I mean, I think that just my conversations with you about YouTube, it's like you're able to get a lot, an enormous amount of work done despite the fact that you're putting out all this content on YouTube. And at the end of the day, like the music like that I'm writing and everything, like my actual job writing music is it trumps the YouTube videos, just like it did this week. Like I have to place more importance on getting the music finished than I do if there's a project that's pressing and like I need to do something. That's got to come first, and sometimes that means I miss a week of putting a video out, and I try to put a video out every week, right? But there's
I
a
think our channels don't exist if we don't do the composing and
well, that's
and
that's
the
exactly
stuff.
what I mean, exactly. But I think what you're saying is like there's a temptation. There's a sometimes we fixate on like we really need to get the content out there. We really need to like. To do like 2 videos even like a week, and sometimes it's like, man, we just don't have time because we gotta work on our music, and that's the most important thing.
What I see a lot of like newer composers and artists saying, should I be putting my songs out on YouTube? Should I be getting people to listen through them on Reels or on Instagram or TikTok or whatever? And I think you can fixate on putting that stuff out in that way to gain an audience. That goes back to the stardom and fame type thing,
Yeah.
and be broadcasting so much that you're not making. And if you and I quit making music and we only broadcast, then it would stop being appealing to people. It would stop being new information, and they just be like, okay, I've heard all this before. But by continuing to bring it, I mean, even though the $5,000 art list, sorry, motion array video would be like, some people are like, oh man, I don't know how I would do that. Still, it's brand new information. You almost had to do it. I mean, there was no way I remember we talked about it off air, and you were like, I don't know if I want to do this or not. I don't want it to come off a weird way. But at the same time, it was super important that you did, because it was current new information about what is possible. And in the same way, if I come in and say, I have a video plan coming up called I've made $0 from these 10 libraries, I think it's also important to talk about what's not working and what is working. I think both of those are important.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, we have
even if it dates us a little bit as far as the channel. Yeah. Maybe you don't do as well in a year from now, and they come back and say, wow, you were doing really good back then. And you're like, hey, that's the reality of what's going on in this business.
100%.
Watch this channel.
Yeah. We're just broadcasting our progress, whether it's
experience. Yeah.
Good or bad. Mostly I try to broadcast the good things. I don't talk about the bad things enough, maybe. Yeah, maybe it's worth doing a video of the libraries that aren't working. That's probably a little update.
That's the easiest one to do for me. Yeah. Speaking of not getting anything from libraries, one thing I am guilty. The next two are going to be things we are both guilty of. First one for me is focusing on money problems. And this is just a general problem that we all have, is that it's easy when things are bad to say, man, I am not making money. I've had a lot of those times this year as I am reshaping my income structures in my career. And boy, you can get really down about that and get focused to the point where it freezes you. It prevents you from writing new stuff. You get so down about how little income you're making. And this could have to do with your day job, that you just hate your day job. I had that on the list as well. But I think it comes down to, we do day jobs for money, and all the gigs that we do for money and that we hate, or that just don't fill us as much as composing, affect our composing, affect our output. And I know it does me. That's probably the biggest one of this list that affects me, probably.
Yeah, the money thing is tough, because I think that ideally, I'm always like, you have to chase the income in order to keep the wheels on the bus, right? And it's
Somebody
it's
should
like
make a channel about that, about chasing music income.
Yeah, it's like it's funny. I don't know. If money wasn't an issue, I wonder how it would, change.
If only there was a Make Music Academy that make Production Music Academy that people could go to, and then they could learn how to make money with production music.
Only production music. Productionmusicacademy.com.
Make music come. Definitely it's something that the income is, I mean, I talk about fixating it. It's what I called my channel. So it is something that we fixate on, and it can be really depressing when you look at it and say, hey, I'm putting all this work in and no money's coming from it, or not, or maybe not consistent money's coming from it. And I just had an interview with a guy about licensing, and he's like, you have to be ready. And Dave talked about in his recent video, for the money just to be 1 month, you're like, I made $1,000 from my BMI check, and the next month you make 100, and you're like, what happened? I was depending on that. And you go from saying, I made $1,000 to I only made $1,000.
You got to bank that. You got to bank it. It's like, I know so many people listening will probably relate to this, but like, I remember getting my first like $200 from Audio Jungle. Like I remember I had like a couple $100 month payout, and I was like just like so excited that I went and bought like $500 worth of like music libraries. Like I went to Spitfire. I was like, yes, I'm gonna get all these
Yeah.
libraries because it's just gonna get better and better. And then like of course the next 2 months are like $50 payouts.
Mm-hmm.
You get excited when you make a little bit of money, and then I mean, if you're like me, you're just compulsively buying things, and I mean, that's how it goes. I think at this point in my career, it's like I know how to kind of bank some of this money. It's like, okay, just spend like 30% or less on updating your tool set, I guess, from your library income. I mean, I mean, it's like I could have taken that $5,000 I got from Motion Array and went and bought. I spent the whole damn thing, but of course, at this point in my life, it's like I have so many other responsibilities I got to be mindful of that a big portion of that just gets banked, and I'm expecting that the months for the rest of the year, and they're not going to be that big. I mean, I'm not going to make $5,000 every month. That's a kind of like a big month, but it averages it out to whatever it is throughout the whole year. But I don't think of it as like, oh, next month I can do the same thing. Nah, I don't expect that. I have to manage expectations.
And then the other thing is spending money on gear, and the gear fixation you were talking about when we started this with the Stevie Beast down
Stevie
there.
Beast, yeah.
Getting, like, at some point I'm going to have to replace this old Mac Mini, and when I do,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to severely handicap a week at least of getting all the software reinstalled and
Totally.
all the libraries and all that kind of stuff, and it's going to require new hard drives and new this and that and the other thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's gear can be one of those things, and you could put software in this, anything that you're fixated on getting this thing. If I only get this one thing, I could really make better music. If I just didn't, if I had more than just Logic, if I had more than just Spitfire $29 things, if I
Mm-hmm.
had more than Albion One, if I had more than, whatever it is that you have and you want more, again, that whole gear thing is a big fixation.
Absolutely. Yeah. So sample libraries for sure were a huge fixation for me for like the better part of 2 years. I was like, just this one synth,
Yeah.
just this one, orchestral library, and then I'll be set.
Well,
And
sad.
I wasted a lot of money on some things that I didn't really need, actually. And like actually, at this point I've actually, like, I have all these some things that I own that I wish I could just sell. I wish I could
Yeah.
sell some of my sample libraries.
It's too
Um,
bad you can't. I don't
I
know.
know. I suppose you could. No, well, I don't know. I don't know how that would work exactly, but yeah, it'd be nice if I could get a rebate on some of them. There's a few of them I definitely don't need that I bought, and they were like $500. I'm like, oh god,
Wow. Yeah.
yeah. I don't know.
Well, so just to kind of now put the final spin on this, we've talked about a lot of things that we fixate on. Now let's talk about what we should be doing instead, or at least alongside all those things at the same time. I mean, whatever, not that any of them are wrong things. There's nothing wrong in the list we just talked about. None of the things that we talked about are terrible. They're just things that keep us from composing music, pitching music, building our network of people who we might pitch our network to or work with as composers, working hard, making a plan for income, which you were just talking about as far as savings and all that stuff. That's something I am terrible at. And then supplanting the work that you don't want to do with eventually music income and things you want to do. I just kind of have been running the numbers, and the Make Music Income site and services and books and the YouTube channel are starting to be an income that might supplant some client work or
Mm-hmm.
things that maybe things I don't want to do as much, maybe even one day supplanting the job I'm doing, where I go and educate in person, but you have to make a plan for that and kind of build that up over time. But I think composing music has to be job one, because I can't talk about music income and talk about composing if I'm not doing it. And so for me, that is the very first thing that I have to be worrying about. And if I fixate on any of these things, I need to be fixating on that as well at the same time, personally.
Yeah, well, I'm always going to fixate on growing as a music producer and a composer, because I need to be able to learn. I'm always thinking about it in terms of it's like a constant education for me. Otherwise, I mean, I'm just going to be talking and rehashing the same points over and
Yeah.
over again on YouTube and the academy. I need to grow and educate myself so that I can pass on that knowledge to others who would benefit from it. So yeah, the idea is always the primary focus is always going to be um, becoming a better music producer. That just is a matter of prioritizing like a certain amount of time every day to work on that. So
And it's funny because all the gurus will tell you focus on evergreen stuff for your YouTube channel. And my highest watched video is my first, gosh, I think the first stock music video that I did that was really knocked out of the park. And Daniel mentioned it on his channel, and it really was responsible for the channel really growing. But that and the Motion Ray video, well, the problem with that is they're already out of date, and I did them months and months ago, and they're the highest watched, and people still have great comments about them, even though I haven't gone back and really watched them in detail. But I can imagine they have to be somewhat outdated by this time. Motion Array, at least think I need to do a new video on what it's like to be a Motion Array composer. Maybe we should do a talk. I mean, you have, but maybe we should do it from what it's like to work with Motion Array in at the end of 2022 going into 2023, what possibilities are and what the realities can be as
what's
well.
changed? Yeah,
Yeah.
I think the queue to get in the library has changed. That's gotten pretty big. I was joking at this. I think Tony left a comment on our last podcast talking about how the queue is ridiculously long, and it's like, yeah, it's probably because Eric and I are talking about it all the time.
Yeah, sorry, Motion Array. uh it's 12 days right now. It seems to be consistently about 12 days
Oh,
to get
for the review, the song review,
for
I was
the
talking about like just the application review.
Oh, the application.
Yeah,
Now I have no idea. I know it took me several months at least to get in there, but that was at the beginning of 2021. So
right.
it's definitely changed now, and what they're looking for, I think, is changing. But that's a whole nother video. But yeah, I think we still have to we have to talk about composing now, what's happening now with libraries, what's happening now with pitching music, what we were just talking about, what Motion Array is looking for, what Artlist is looking for, and that's going to date our videos, but it doesn't matter because our videos should be helping people on a weekly basis,
Yeah,
and
totally.
our composing needs to happen on a weekly basis, where we won't have anything in our pitching,
We
or
won't have
we
anything
won't
to
have
talk
anything to
about.
talk about. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, any last thoughts about this thing? Have you fixated on anything during this interview?
Fixated on this construction that's blocking the view of my mountain view. They're building this huge condo
Oh
in front of
no!
yeah, it's so annoying.
Is your
It's
whole view
no,
going
no,
to go
it's only
away?
obscuring like this like nice little sliver of my view, but it's like the condo building here in Vancouver is just never ending. They just keep building it up. But I had such a pure, beautiful view of the mountains, and it's they're just building it, and it's construction every morning, like until I don't know, whatever, 5 p.m. So it's always kind of noisy, which is kind of annoying, but that's life. Sorry, that was totally
We get
unrelated to music.
fixated things. Well, no, I mean, I moved into an apartment in Chicago, and I had a beautiful view of the Sears Tower. It was called Sears Tower back then,
Right.
and it was beautiful. And I could sit on my back porch, and then the week after I moved in, they built a whole condo community right in front of that, and I couldn't see the city anymore
So
for the
annoying.
rest of the time I lived there. And today I went out to watch the rocket launch. I got my
That's
NASA shirt
cool.
on today because there was another SpaceX launch today,
Yeah.
and clouds were so I wanted to fixate on that, but I couldn't. I was blocked, and that's what these fixations do. They block us from doing the things that we need to do. See how I turned all that around? And
Nice
and
segue.
so we get someone builds a library thing up so big in our heads that we fixate on that library, and we don't really enjoy the composing process anymore. So that's where I was going with all this, is that I want you to focus on your composing and your pitching, and make sure if you get too caught
100%.
up on any of these things we've talked about, you can always just pause everything including this podcast, and go compose.
Fixate on the quality of your music, and everything else will follow. Fixate on the fundamentals. That's the fundamental. Everything will follow from there, I think.
Love it. Cool. Well, we will end on that. I hope you guys have gotten something out of this today. Thanks for listening, as always. Any last words, Mr. Steve, or was that your last word?
That was my last word.
Okay, well, then we're not going.
But throw your thoughts in the comments. Let us know what's up, and we'll get back to you.
Only nice comments, please.
Yeah, no negative comments. No mean things.
They can be constructive, but not mean. Okay.
True.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much for listening and for watching, and we'll see you next time.
See you guys.
All right. Bye-bye.